Hello everyone, I'm Acebes and I would like to share my report on ADHD. So what is ADHD? ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, one of the most common mental disorders affecting children. A person with ADHD has differences in brain development and brain activity that affects attention, the ability to sit still, and self-control. Attention deficit in some experts assert a misleading name. Attention deregulation might be a more accurate description since most people with ADHD have more than enough attention. They just can't harness it in the right direction at the right time with any consistency. Here are the subtypes of ADHD: the hyperactive impulsive type, inattentive type, and combined type. So hyperactive impulsive type. People with this type of ADHD act as if driven by a motor, with little impulse control, moving, screaming, and talking at even the most inappropriate times. They are impulsive, impatient, and can interrupt others. The inattentive type. People with this type of ADHD are easily distracted and forgetful. They may be daydreamers who lose track of homework, cell phones, and conversations with regularity. And lastly, the combined type. Individuals with this type of ADHD displays a mixture of all the symptoms of a hyperactive impulsive type and inattentive type. So let's talk about the origin of ADHD. ADHD was originally called hyperkinetic impulse disorder. It wasn't until the late 1960s that the APA, or American Psychiatric Association, formally recognized ADHD as a mental disorder. In the early 1960s, ADHD was first mentioned in 1902. British pediatrician Sir George Still described an abnormal defect of moral control in the children. He found that some affected children could not control their behavior the way a typical child would, but they were still intelligent. The APA released a revised version of DSM-3 in 1987. They removed the hyperactivity distinction and changed the name to Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD. The APA combined the three symptoms into a single type and did not identify subtypes of the disorder. The APA released the fourth edition of DSM in 2000, wherein the fourth edition established the three subtypes of ADHD used by healthcare professionals today: the combined type ADHD, the inattentive type ADHD, and the hyperactive impulsive type ADHD. Next, what causes ADHD? There are multiple causes of ADHD, such as chemical imbalance, lifestyle during pregnancy, physical trauma, toxins, brain changes, and heredity. First is chemical imbalance. We have dopamine that allows us to regulate responses and take action to achieve specific rewards. It is responsible for feeling of pleasure and reward. It functions as a neurotransmitter, a chemical released by neurons to send signals to another nerve cells. Dopamine transporter. It is a transmembrane protein that is responsible for the reuptake of dopamine from the termination of dopaminergic transmission. Next, lifestyle during pregnancy. What you do and what you eat can affect the baby's brain development. Poor nutrition. An unhealthy diet during pregnancy could influence a child's risk of ADHD. Researchers found that a high-fat, high-sugar diet can affect the functions of a gene called IGF-2, which helps steer fetal development of the brain regions. Next, smoking and alcoholism. Pregnant women who drink alcohol and smoke may more than double their child's risk of developing ADHD, according to a report. Next cause is physical trauma. Physical trauma in the abdomen during the pregnancy could pose a risk for a child to develop ADHD. Toxins. Researchers believe that some toxins may interfere with the brain development of the child, to which could lead to hyperactivity, rash behavior, and inattentiveness. Brain changes. In the brain, we have areas that control attention, but in the case of developing ADHD, the areas that control attention is less active. And lastly, heredity. ADHD tends to run in families, to which a gene from a parent can pass it down to its child. Thus, genetics takes a great role in causing a child to have ADHD. Signs and symptoms of ADHD. There are three signs and symptoms of ADHD. First is the inattentive. The child is easily distracted, doesn't follow directions or finish tasks, doesn't appear to be listening, doesn't pay attention and makes careless mistakes, forgets about daily activities, has problems organizing daily tasks, doesn't like to do things that require sitting still, often losing things, and tends to daydream. The second one is hyperactivity. The child often squirms, fidgets, or bounces when sitting, doesn't stay seated, has trouble playing quietly, is always moving, such as running or climbing on things, talks excessively, and is always on the go, as if driven by a motor. And the third symptom is impulsivity. Impulsivity is a tendency to act on a whim, displaying behavior characterized by little or no forethought, reflection, or consideration of the consequence. The child has trouble with waiting for his or her turn, blurts out answers, and interrupts others. Treatment of ADHD. Many symptoms of ADHD can be managed with medication and therapy. Medication. There are three types of medication: stimulants, non-stimulants, and antidepressants. So we have stimulants. These drugs help control hyperactive and impulsive behavior and increase attention, and also help control behavior problems. If stimulant medication don't work for everyone with ADHD, non-stimulants medication may be prescribed for people older than 6. Non-stimulant drugs help increase the ability to pay attention, concentrate, stay focused, and stop fidgeting. It is thought to work by distorting the balance of certain natural substances, such as the neurotransmitters in the brain. Lastly, antidepressant drugs. Drugs that fight depression are helpful for some people with ADHD. Next treatment. The other treatment of ADHD is therapy, special education, behavior modification, psychotherapy, and social training skills. Special education. It helps a child learn at school. Having structure and a routine can help children with ADHD a lot. Behavior modification. It teaches ways to replace bad behaviors with good ones. Psychotherapy. This helps handle their emotions and frustrations. Can also help improve their self-esteem. Counseling may also help family members better understand the child or adult with ADHD. And lastly, social training skills. These can teach behaviors such as taking turns and sharing. Education and training for adults. So, behavioral parent training programs. House rules, structures, and consistent routines. Praise appropriate behaviors and ignoring mild inappropriate behaviors. Using appropriate commands, using when then contingencies, planning ahead and work with child in public places, time out from positive reinforcement, daily charts and point token systems with rewards and consequences, and lastly, school home note system for rewarding behavior at school and tracking homework. Next, parent-to-parent classes. In this class, this gives an overview of ADD or ADHD, assessment of multimodal treatment, developing parent strategies and positive behavioral interventions, strengthening family relationships, educational rights for your child, bridging the gap between home and school, and resiliency, teen challenges, and future success. Next, education and training for children. Knowledge and understanding is very powerful. Teaching teens and children can help them understand what ADHD is, thus helping people with ADHD in their daily social lives. So what to do when there is a person with ADHD? You can't control a person with ADHD besides treatment, but you can control your actions. So here are what you're going to do when there is a person with ADHD. Be understanding. Put yourself in that person's shoes. Be patient. Be respectful. Encourage. Be their support system. Acknowledge the impact you have on the person. Do not isolate them from the rest. They are people too. They also get hurt. Encourage them when they make progress and acknowledge achievements and effort. Next, what not to do when there is a person with ADHD. Do not provoke them. Do not say things like ADHD isn't real. It's no big deal. And lastly, do not make fun of them. So the truth about ADHD. Here are the myths and facts. First myth, there is no such thing as ADHD. Fact, ADHD is very real developmental disorder that affects 11% of school children in the US. All kids with ADHD are hyperactive. Fact, some children are, but some children are inattentive without hyperactivity. Here covers the types of ADHD. Myth, children will grow out of ADHD. Fact, ADHD can continue into adulthood and can be a lifelong issue. Myth, children with ADHD are not as smart as their peers. Fact, many children with ADHD are highly intelligent. Myth, children with ADHD are just disobedient. Fact, children with ADHD do not misbehave on purpose. They often do their best to be good and do not act out intentionally. Remember, education is the best prevention. So, thank you for listening, and I hope you had a great time, and I hope you learned something from my report. And that's all. Thank you.